Today we're going to look at red flag behaviors and some things that may seem like red flags but aren't necessarily, and also when things are red flags but they're not intentional. There are a few things that we could point at, right? Like love bombing. Sometimes people are just very gift-giving, and that's okay. It's when you go, hey, slow down. Don't need all that. Then they get mad at you for it, where it's a problem. So we're going to look at a video from TheraminTrees called That's a Red Flag, but I do that. And I'm going to get really accidentally introspective, and I'm going to just confirm that I'm a red flag or I'm enthusiastic. We'll find out. That's a red flag, but I do that. Oh no, did I do that? We're all too young for that. I'm too young for that.
Many people who get drawn into destructive relationships, from domestic to professional to ideological, often find that the destructive behavior only emerges sometime into the relationship. We find ourselves in a spin, struggling to recognize the people we thought we knew. Unfortunately, by the time we get our bearings and realize what's going on, it's sometimes too late to extract ourselves straightforwardly. We might have formed social connections that are tough to untangle, made commitments that are difficult to break. Be great, wouldn't it, if before we got involved, we'd had a list of clear, unambiguous warning signs to watch for.
I'm going to try not to pause it too much because I think it does a good job of explaining what it's trying to talk about. I've said this a lot. It sucks that sometimes you will fall into relationships with people who will not show you who they are until it's too late. Whether that's 6 months in or marriage, sometimes people will not show you the parts of them that just may be honest out of either fear that you're going to leave them or they just aren't ready, whatever it is. It's pretty common to fall into a relationship with people who may be hiding something or just not entirely showing you who they are. I think a really good way to try and avoid stuff like that is to look at who the people that you're dating are friends with and see what kind of people they are. All of my friends are pretty good people. They're all very sensitive. I don't know why they're friends with me because I'm mean. But for the most part, they're all good people, which I don't think means I'm a good person, but it means I'm at least a good enough of a liar for them to want to stick around me. Oh, I should explain. I'm a red flag. I'm a walking red flag. Sorry. Do you like me? That's your fault. I didn't do that. I will lie to you to bring you in with this dog, with the random jokes that don't actually mean anything. Oh, he's not making fun of me. He's making fun of other people. That's because you're not stuck yet. When you are, I'm going to make fun of you. That only applies to people I make friends with. That does not apply to Lee. I love the woman. Cannot be mean to her.
Red flag has become a common term for attributes considered to be indicators of bad actors, but there are problems with the concept. One massive issue is overuse. The term red flag gets applied to a ridiculous range of traits and behaviors. Some of the more absurd examples I've come across include not paying for both parties on a date, no religious belief, a love of classical music, being an only child, having the wrong kind of phone.
Some of these, when I say I'm a red flag, I say that you should not want to be my friend, not really that I'm a red flag. I have no issue ever paying for dates. Religious belief is an interesting one because I grew up very Catholic and I just happen to not be now. Love classical music is really funny as a red flag, and I hope there's an explanation for that later. Only child? I raised my sibling, but also she's my sibling. Wrong phone?
These kinds of false red flags can arise from individual prejudice or, on the group level, tribalism. Attributes are labelled red flags, not because they signify any actual threat, but merely because they don't conform to personal preferences. More credible lists of red flags feature manipulative tactics known to be associated with genuinely destructive, exploitative individuals and groups, including various superficially positive behaviours designed to reel targets in. For example, love bombing. Showering targets with attention, affection, and praise.
I'm the exact opposite. I just do not pay attention to you until you want me to love you. And now we're stuck together. Oh, we text every day, every single day, and we have for the last 4 years, and I'm going to ignore you for 2 weeks.
Or mirroring. Professing similar interests, beliefs, preferences, and experiences to create an illusion of connection. But even here, things are far from clear-cut. Many people have commented to me over the years that these well-documented kinds of red flag behaviors are commonly exhibited by innocent parties. Someone I'll call Jason, who was
The thing about love bombing is it's one of those things that I can never tell if it's being done on purpose or not, because it's really easy to, let's say, get into a new relationship with someone, have the money or the resources to give them a lot of what you think they might like, and just do it. And you may not be thinking of it as love bombing, but it could be. You could be sending them cards, you could be sending them gifts, you could be sending them flowers all the time. You could be doing incredible things for their birthday when you just met. And for you, it might just be being nice. Or for you, it might be like, I like this person. I would like them to do that for me too, so I'm going to do it. Or you just enjoy it. But if the other person is going to take it as love bombing, then it's love bombing. There's a few ways to like tell. If someone is giving you like a ton of gifts that you don't ask for, and then you go, hey, thank you, but maybe less, and they get mad, that's a problem. If someone is just like overly gift giving, like, I don't know, and you don't have a problem with it and they don't seem to be like manipulative with it, then it's probably fine. But this is my way of telling my friends that if you love me, you'll start just sending me Pokemon cards all the time without me having to ask.
Someone I'll call Jason, who was love bombed by members of a deeply damaging group, said he became convinced his ferociously friendly new neighbors would one day reveal some murky agenda. After a couple of years, he realized they were just genuinely warm people. But for Jason, it raised a very reasonable question. How do you tell the difference between harmless and harmful love bombers?
I wish I wasn't, but I'm so skeptical of everyone I meet, especially when they're too nice, and especially on Twitch. I've seen too many people come into this space, be really, really nice in public, and then in private, or on their own streams, they're not. And so it's like, it's so hard for me to believe people are doing the right thing for no reason or the right reason. And there are plenty, more often than not, times that I'm wrong. But I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, listen, dude, I'm not a nice person. I'm just hopefully very honest about who I am.
The same question holds for mirroring. Years ago, in a group interview for one of my first counseling courses, we were asked to organize a hypothetical group meal. It was a completely arbitrary exercise designed to see how we interacted. Someone suggested everyone should shout out their favorite dessert. I said zabaione, which is an Italian alcoholic whipped custard. To my surprise, the next person also said zabaione. So did the next. And the next.
Why?
Only the fifth person chose something different. I've jokingly called it the zabaione effect. It stretched credulity to believe this obscure dessert was such a universal favorite. And indeed, one group member later confessed she just said it to help us get to a group consensus.
There's that one video, right? And there were so many social experiments on the internet. One of them is there's a doctor's office, right? And every person in the office is an actor, except one person that's actually scheduled to come in. So what happens is every single person sits there. The person who's actually scheduled to come in, the real person in the situation, comes in, signs in, sits down. Every few minutes, somebody stands up randomly. Nobody looks around except the woman. It was a woman in the situation who was actually there for her doctor's appointment. A couple minutes later, someone else stands up. And then someone else, and then someone else, and then half the room is standing. And so she stands up. That makes sense to me. That makes more sense to me than a situation in which there's 5 people lined up. One person says their favorite dessert and the other person says it immediately. It would make sense to me if like the first 3 people were actors and they all said the same thing on purpose and the 4th person copied them. But the second one just feels like you should just say what you want.
Another said he couldn't think of anything else in the moment. The third made no retraction. Professing preferences, interests, and beliefs we don't necessarily hold can stem from various motivations. Many targets of abuse habitually echo other people because, historically, voicing their own views led to punishment and ridicule. So, if a behavior can be driven by all kinds of motives, bad and benign, what does it even mean to call it a red flag? The term red flag isn't about saying, when you see this behavior, run. That sentiment applies more to what we might call red lights or deal breakers, i.e., instances of coercive, controlling, and destructive behavior.
We have joked a lot about red flags here. I like to make the joke that like, oh, here's some of my favorite red flags. There are a few things that I look out for when meeting people, whether it's friendships, romantic, whatever it is. My biggest thing is on how people treat other people. I care much less so about how people treat me specifically. Because normally people are nice to me. I've had a lot of people be really, really nice to me or follow me on social media when like I thought they were cool, but then in private or like to other people, they're not. And that bothers me. I don't care if you're nice to me, if you're not nice to other people. I would rather it be the other way around. That goes for people in public. That goes for like wait staff. That goes for just like anyone trying to do their job, really. I understand being opinionated. I'm super opinionated and not all of my opinions are agreeable, but they're not problematic. If they're mean to the waiter, I'm immediately out. Immediately. There's also like little things like the way that people talk about everyday jobs. Like it's like when we talk about working at like Walgreens, right? There's a big difference in being like, oh, I would never want to work a job like that again. It sucked. And speaking like a job is beneath you. People speaking like jobs are beneath them is another red flag for me. Cause like you just have to understand people and you don't know why people are doing whatever they're doing. You just don't. You don't know why anyone is in any situation. So people who like speak ill about people in general, the jobs that they do, red flag. Not liking animals is an interesting one to me. Like people who don't like animals, it's always been like, why?
Including violence, threats, and mind games. Labeling a behavior as a red flag is more about saying, this needs a closer look. This person or group could be innocent, but bad actors are also known to behave in these ways, to manipulate and exploit their targets. So I need to pay attention, keep a healthy guard up, until I feel confident about the motives at play here. Of course, some of us prefer to keep things simple and treat red flags like red lights, take them as evidence of wicked intent. In doing that, we can end up pushing lots of good people away. And for individuals who already have a tendency to self-isolate, that can further magnify their isolation.
Yeah, that's me. Oops.
And cut them off from valuable support. Assessing the motives behind red flag behavior isn't always straightforward. None of us are mind readers, and making an informed judgment can require a lot of observation across many situations over a span of time. Like a court case, we have to consider the weight of the evidence, assess it dispassionately, tolerate ambiguity as we entertain the possibility of guilt or innocence, and take whatever time we need to arrive at our verdict.
We should also state that you don't need all of these reasons to cut someone out from your life, especially if it's someone you just met. If you just met someone and you get like an ick, a bad feeling, you don't have to be their friend or a person in their life. Like you're allowed to be like, I don't know what it is. I don't feel great about it. You don't have to give everyone the chance to prove you right or wrong. You probably should give more people than not the option to be your friend. But if you get a bad feeling about someone, it's okay to be like, not my vibe.
I'd like to explore this process of assessing motives with a case study of a therapy client I'll call Isaac.
Scarlet flags, violet flags, Gen 9.
Isaac came to therapy following a couple of abusive relationships. His confidence had taken a hefty hammering, and he was annoyed at himself for falling for a second abuser barely months after leaving the first. He'd thought he was on safe ground because the second one was so different. The first, Sam, had been gentle, humble, intellectual. When Jake came along, he seemed the total opposite, playful, excitable, goofy. But over time, Jake's behavior changed, just like Sam's had, becoming fiercely critical, controlling, and coercive. When we've had damaging experiences with an individual or group, we sometimes avoid people who appear similar in terms of basic temperament. But by focusing on surface presentation style, we can miss deeper patterns. Despite their apparent differences, Sam and Jake employed very similar tactics. As we explored these tactics, Isaac saw how Sam and Jake had swiftly forged a false sense of connection. But he still had a hard time seeing their behavior as red flags, because he'd seen it before, in his very first relationship with Greg. Greg swept into Isaac's life like a dust devil. They crossed paths in their college canteen and instantly clicked, shared the same outlook, interests, experiences, confided things they'd never confessed before. In no time, they were living together. It was the happiest time of Isaac's life. Tragically, after just a handful of years together, an aggressive cancer that Greg had survived in his teenage years returned. This time, he didn't make it. Isaac's relationship with Greg became a benchmark, a template for what a relationship should look like. Spontaneous, impulsive, no holding back. While it was plain to see why Greg, and now Isaac, had taken this seize-the-day approach to life, we looked at the idea that carpe diem might not always be the best guiding principle. Great if you were lucky enough to meet a Greg, but a red carpet for bad actors looking to bypass security checks and shortcut their way into someone's life. A few months into therapy, Isaac revealed he'd started seeing someone called Devon. He hadn't wanted to talk about it until now because he thought analysing it would kill it. They'd met one lunchtime at a park near Isaac's work and instantly clicked. Things went well for a few weeks. They'd had some great days out and found they had tons in common. Recently, Devon had organised an amazing weekend.
Listen, dude, I'm not trying to victim blame the guy. However, Devon with an O, red flag. Every Devon I know that's O-N instead of I-N is a red flag. That's a joke, please. Stop.
Recently, Devon had organised an amazing weekend break to Europe. But on their last night, the mood changed when Isaac suggested they should take things slow. Devon became suddenly distant, and Isaac feared he'd ruined everything. We hit rewind and reviewed the events in more detail. Sitting in the park one day, Isaac's joined by a passing jogger, Devon. They get talking. Everything Isaac likes, Devon seems to like too. Same music, same films, same food. When Isaac mentions he's always wanted to visit Berlin, Devon says it's been his dream too.
I understand that, and it's really, really nice, right, to meet someone and have all these common interests. But do you not, like, ask? Like, if someone was like, oh, I really like Pokemon. What's your favorite Pokemon? Which game? The TV show? Oh, how did you get into it? Because I could not fake it. If you were like, oh, I love Jeopardy, I can't be like, oh, me too, dude. What is there not to like? That's as far as I'm getting. I've never seen an episode of Jeopardy. I've only seen clips.
Isaac said it crossed his mind that Devon might be trying to mirror him, but he'd spoken so fluently about their mutual interests. He then reminded himself that Sam and Jake had too. Isaac and Devon exchange phone numbers. Over the following month, they go for drives out to the countryside and the coast. Isaac now remembers that Devon commented on his shirts and bought some in a similar style. He also remembers that Devon seemed intensely interested in his family and past relationships. Again, this could be completely innocent. We want to know who we're with. But this intense probing is also consistent with the period of interrogation commonly experienced by targets as abusers try to gauge weak spots and potential obstacles. Isaac tells Devon about Sam and Jake. Devon says he's had some abusive relationships too, and gets emotional speaking about how they shattered his confidence. He says he's never been this open with anyone, but he feels safe with Isaac.
I feel so bad saying things like that. I feel bad being like, oh, I've never felt this way before. Oh, I've never done this before. Because like, if it's not true, why are you lying about it? If it is true, I feel bad that I have been loved by so many people and was not able to love them in the way that I'm able to love other people now. That's not going in the video. That's just like a random thought I had.
He has total faith in him and feels like he can say anything. Again, these sentiments could be sincere, but overblown expressions of trust are also a common manipulation designed to create a false bond. After a few weeks, Devon arranges a weekend trip to Berlin.
After weeks?
Isaac is thrilled. In Germany, Devon showers Isaac with gifts and attention. He tells Isaac he's never met anyone like him, and he's in constant awe of him. On their last night, Devon tells Isaac,
is this me? Am I a red flag?
He'd like to spend the rest of his life with him.
Yeah, because I would do it. If I had the money, I would just do this. I'm the problem. I am the problem. I am the problem. Everyone who's ever said anything mean about me, I'm so sorry. You were right. Oh, what a realization to have, Max.
And asks if he can move in with Isaac when they get back to the UK. The rush to commit is extremely common among bad actors, from abusive partners to abusive ideological groups.
It's so funny. Sorry. Yeah, I'm learning a lot about myself right now.
From abusive partners to abusive ideological groups to online scammers. Targets are pressured into situations that are difficult to get out of. Isaac suggests they take things slow. He needs time to think. Devon says he doesn't need any time. He's sure. Isaac says he wants to be sure too. It's worth underlining again that all these behaviors, mirroring, interrogation, love bombing, overblown statements of trust, rushing to commit, can spring from benign motives. Some people are just impulsive and enthusiastic.
Okay, I'm gonna pretend that that's me. Instead of me being problematic, I'm impulsive and enthusiastic. There are plenty of times when we've talked about things that have to be one-sided, like breaking up. It takes one person to initiate the breakup. The other person doesn't have to agree. You should just break up then and there. If one person is moving too fast and the other one asks to slow down, it is the job of the person moving too fast to slow down. And if you take that as an attack, you're like, well, I'm sure, why aren't you? That's a problem. Which is why we're being given this example. Devon is obviously an issue. It's anything that has to do with consent. Both people should be comfortable with it. Whether that's something physical or moving in together or meeting parents, both people should be okay with it. I just saw a TikTok this morning about this woman who was with her boyfriend for 8 years, and for 8 years she's been asking him about marriage. And finally, like the month before she posted this TikTok, she was like, we were at a jewelry store. He took me to see rings, and then we left. And I asked him why we're leaving, and he said, well, I just want to know what kind of ring you want for when I do propose. And then she goes, when are you proposing then? After 8 years. And he goes, well, I don't know. I don't think I'm ready for marriage. If one person wants to get married and the other person does it, you should probably split up. Because that's like an entirely different thing. That's like children. If one person wants children and the other person doesn't, you probably shouldn't have children. Which means you should split up that. You should split up that person. You should go have kids with someone who wants to have kids with you. You should go, if marriage is important to you, you should be with someone who also wants to get married. There are things that require two people to agree. Children, marriage, moving in together, all of these things. And it's okay to not be ready. It is. But at some point, it's too late. It's okay to not be ready to live together, and that could be as long as you want it to be. It's okay to not be ready to get married after a year or two, but you can't string people along and say, no, it'll happen eventually. And then it just doesn't. And then after 8 years you go, I'm not ready. That's too long. That is too long. That is too long. That is too long. Unless you started dating when you were 12, then that makes sense.
Some people are just impulsive and enthusiastic, like Isaac's first partner, Greg.
I'm Greg.
The point is, it's a mistake to allow ourselves to be swept off our feet by these behaviors and abandon all caution, especially when sizable commitments are involved. In the morning, Devon is cold and distant. After a bleak taxi ride to the airport,
I'm sorry, we're pausing it here. I hate things that are done as punishment. I don't think you should ever punish your partner. That's it. I don't think you should punish your partner. If it is an issue, bring it up and talk about it. Figure out what it is you need to do to fix it. But, I'm not talking to you right now. I don't like that, dude. It just doesn't help me. If you need space, that's different. Asking for space or taking space is entirely different than punishing your partner by not talking to them. I don't believe in it. I do not believe in punishing your partner. That's just a weird dynamic to me. Yeah, I don't get it. I think sometimes it happens by accident. Sometimes people will be like, oh, they were a little mean to me today because of something I may have said. They're punishing me. But I don't think that's always like the case. Also, we're so old. We're all so old here. I'm 27. I don't want to be punished by you. I'm not a child. Also don't want to punish you. And you don't have to do it immediately. Like if you really need space, that's something that you could talk about. Hey, give me a couple days. Not, I'm ignoring you, putting myself in timeout so you can't talk to me. Pick a card, any card. Is this your card? No? All right. And then you throw it at them.
After a bleak taxi ride to the airport, he says a breezy goodbye and leaves Isaac to catch his flight. Devon's dramatic mood swing shows a chilling ability to
Wait. Are you leaving this man in Germany?
Devon's dramatic mood swing shows a chilling ability to switch off the sunshine. The honeymoon is definitely over. But going over the events with a clearer head, Isaac begins to wonder how real the honeymoon was. Between this and the next therapy session, Isaac doesn't hear from Devon, although he knows Devon has been active online. He recalls that Sam often subjected him to silent treatments when they lived together, sometimes ignoring him for days.
Immediately, no. Like, you are not pulling that around me. No. If you're mad, you need a day to yourself, whatever, I'll deal with it. But like, punishing me? No. We're adults. Act like it.
Isaac remembers it felt like being physically starved. With Devon's mood swings and use of punitive silence, the red flags are now giving way to red lights. Isaac starts imagining life without Devon. In the next session, Isaac reports that Devon sent him an email saying he didn't believe Isaac ever wanted a relationship and that Isaac had just used him. He made it clear the burden was on Isaac to prove his intentions.
Oh, this is why I had to stop watching 90 Day Fiancé.
Isaac recalls similar dominance tests in his relationships with Sam and Jake. It was always Isaac who had to prove himself. For Isaac, Devon's email is the tipping point. He sends Devon a brief terminating reply and blocks him. Over the next few sessions, Isaac wrestles with ambivalence. Did he overreact? Were things really that bad? He remembers sweet moments with Devon that knock him off balance. This is the insidious effect of the abuser's love bombing. It creates a tantalizing, idealistic image of what might have been. Isaac wonders if maybe Devon wasn't a complete monster like Sam and Jake. Maybe Devon's previous abusive relationships just made him overly sensitive and he just needed extra reassurance. Leaving aside the question of whether Devon's accounts of those relationships were true, Isaac raised an important point. Some targets of abuse begin relationships when they're not yet ready to handle them, not able to negotiate, to set and/or meet reasonable expectations, to navigate conflict.
I will say, they've done a good job of presenting a lot of the red flags immediately. They meet, all the mirroring, and then let's go to Berlin. After weeks of dating, no. Do not fly to another country with someone after a few weeks of knowing them. Maybe it'll work out, but don't get yourself murdered.
Getting involved with people based on who they might become instead of who they are right now can set both parties up for a very bumpy ride.
There are things that does not necessarily apply to. There are things that you can sign up to be a part of with someone, hopefully to be who they are, right? Joe's a good example. Joe is a great example. Joe and his partner have been dating since they were in college, and now they're both doctors. That's something you can do. You could sign up to go through that experience with people. But it doesn't apply to when people are bad people or abusive or have anger issues. No, they'll grow out of it. No, you should believe people are who they are. And if they grow out of it, great. They could find someone to be with after that. We didn't want it to end. Married 17 years. That's so great. I'm so happy for you. Yes. Yeah. I had a whole rant one day in PB's chat about how I don't care how long you've known each other when you get married. And it goes back to the thing that happened at the beginning of this, where they're like, oh, out of nowhere, people can change or show you who they really are. There's people like you who after 3 weeks have been married for 20 years. And there's people who get married after 20 years and after 2 weeks cannot be together. You have a 50-50 shot. You have a 50-50 shot. Doesn't matter when you get married.
Recovery has to come first, then relationships. People don't have to be monsters or predators to be unfit partners.
Don't feel bad about breaking up a relationship for seemingly no reason. You don't need a big reason and not want to be somebody's life partner, right? If after a few months you're not vibing, if after a few years you're like, we're just probably going in different directions, you don't need to feel stuck. That's so much easier to say than to do. I've had people in my comment section on YouTube go, I've been with the same person for 7 years because I'm afraid they're going to hurt themselves. That sucks and that's terrifying and I'm so sorry. And I'm not the person to give you advice. The only advice I would have is to just leave anyway.
We don't have to diagnose them with malignant personalities. We just have to look at their behavior, imagine it's never going to change, and ask ourselves if we'd be prepared to live with that. Some weeks after finishing with Devon, Isaac encounters him again at the park. Devon embarks on a lengthy monologue, telling Isaac he regrets how things ended. He says Isaac was right to dump him, but he's a different person now.
Nope, there it is.
To Isaac.
Okay, so one of two things is going to happen. Either Devon goes, oh, you know what? That was the right thing to happen. You were right to break up with me. I've grown so much. Thank you. And moves on, which is what should happen. Or, hey, now that I'm different and I know not to do that again, do you want to try this again? I know we were just Dev off, but maybe it's time to be back Dev on.
He admires Isaac for taking no nonsense. He wishes he was that strong. He wonders if they might be friends, and maybe down the line, who knows?
Oh.
I call this the revamp. Here, abusers come back for a second try, claiming to have evolved. But all that's evolved is their deviousness.
Revamp is good because it's like they were a vampire and they're bloodsuckers, and now they're doing it again.
Having underestimated the target the first time round, the abuser attempts a more subtle game. Isaac says he's seeing someone. It's a lie, but it's all he can think of to get rid of Devon. It doesn't work, but it achieves something much more effective. Devon explodes, repeating all his previous accusations.
People are going to show you who they are. We've had that conversation so many times here. People are going to show you who they are. And if you say no to someone and they blow up at you after just telling you that they changed, that's who they are. I really hope you don't fall back into that. Oh yeah, also stop talking to people and immediately considering them a romantic partner. Ooh, is it Sylvia Plath that has that quote? Being born a woman is an awful tragedy. Yes, my consuming desire to mingle with road crews, sailors and soldiers, barrooms, regulars, to be a part of a scene, anonymous, listening, recording, all is spoiled by the fact that I am a girl, a female, always in danger of assault and battery. My consuming interest in men and their lives is often misconstrued as a desire to seduce them or as an invitation to intimacy. Yet, God, I want to talk to everybody I can as deeply as I can. I want to be able to sleep in an open field, to travel west, to walk freely at night. It is Sylvia Plath. Yeah. You should assume people are just being nice.
Sometimes, when we arrive at a negative verdict about a person or group, some part of us is left wondering if we made the right judgment. But sometimes, life hands us total vindication. Isaac observes him silently until he leaves. There are no simple formulas for identifying bad actors. When we rely on simplistic ideas about who to avoid, we often end up pushing away more good people. Some bad actors make themselves known very early on with obvious red light behaviors, but others are extremely convincing. Their red flag behaviors can appear identical to positive innocent behaviors, the only difference being the underlying motive. Even highly trained abuse experts are sometimes taken in by them. To some degree, every new relationship represents a leap of faith, but it doesn't have to be a reckless one. When we're encouraged to make decisions in states of intense emotion, feeling swept off our feet, feeling confused, feeling panic, we need to take a step back, slow down, and assess the situation with a clear head. As Isaac's story illustrates, we also need to scrutinize ourselves. The more we fill our heads with magical, idealistic notions, about relationships, families, life, the easier we are to exploit by bad actors ready to promise us that magic. If we want to see their red flags clearly, we need to remove our rose-colored glasses.
That was, I think he's just very well put together. I don't think my barber likes me. I tip well, so I'm sure he's fine. However, whenever I'm in there and I'm sitting down, everybody else is like having a full conversation with their barber, and I'm just not. I'm like sitting there thinking about whatever I'm thinking about, right? And sometimes he'll ask me questions, but I don't know how to have small talk. So I just go, yeah. Like he was like, hey, bro, you have a girlfriend? I was like, yeah. And he was like, cool. So now I know like his entire life story. Like he just like tells me things and I'm like, yo, dope. But then he'll be like, where are you from? And then I go, California.